Hi, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. People are still sort of filing in. We've got a fair number of people who've registered, so we want to give everyone a chance to settle in with their popcorn and or adult beverage of choice, and then we'll get started. And just so that everyone is aware, this presentation is being recorded, so if you have to leave for any reason or your connection fails, or if there's something you would like to review, you'll be able to do that. Likewise, we'll make it available to those who were unable to attend, but who might be interested in the material that was shared today. Okay. Well, we will go ahead and get started here, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. First of all, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I'm sorry that we can't be doing this face-to-face and in person. I really do miss seeing all of you, and it's hard even today with this presentation because I don't get to see your faces either. I just know that you're out there. So thanks again for taking the time to be here. And again, I don't want to sound redundant here, but I do want to thank everyone for all of the hard work that you are doing on behalf of the college and on behalf of our students. I hear from students on a daily basis, and they're very appreciative of the work that you're doing. And they're also very cognizant of the fact that you've put a lot of time and effort in. They've commented, many of them to me, about the quality of the course materials that they're seeing. So kudos to you and thank you for your hard work and effort. Okay, well, we have a fairly bold agenda. There's quite a bit to talk about. You will have opportunities to ask questions through the Q&A feature. We will address those, try to do it in as timely a manner as possible. So feel free to use that. If your question is sort of time-bound to something that I've presented or I'm talking about, we'll try to get to that right away. Otherwise, we'll try to get to the Q&A toward the end of today's meeting, probably as we get to the State of the College feedback section. So I'm going to propose that I flip number 4 and number 5. So we're going to do the enrollment update first and then the financial update. As you'll see, the enrollment update really flows into the financial update, so it makes sense to cover that first. All right, I did share minutes with you yesterday, and we don't really have a great way of formally voting to approve or not approve those minutes. So we're going to consider them approved. However, if you do have changes or modifications that you would like to see made to those minutes, you can send those to our faculty secretary, Krim Lacey, and Krim can make those changes to the minutes. As I said, this meeting's being recorded, but there will also be minutes available for your viewing pleasure as well. All right, well then let's get started. I want to first start by introducing our new faculty and staff colleagues. We do have some new faculty who have joined our ranks in spite of our current circumstances. We got the hires in just before the hiring freeze. So well done to the search committees. Your hard work really paid off here. So I'll start with Ji Fan, who is Assistant Professor of Biology. We were really excited to add Ji and his colleagues to the mix. Next, we have Georgie Kabarovsky, who's a Lecturer 3 in French. We have Krista Saber, who's joining us as an assistant professor of philosophy. Suvantra Tripathi, who is assistant professor of physics. Tian An Wong, joining us as an assistant professor of mathematics. And then we have a new staff member, Michelle Rahman, who is administrative assistant in the Department of Natural Sciences. So please join me in giving a virtual welcome, however we do it, spirit fingers, applause, to our new faculty and staff members. And we are very excited about you joining us here in the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters. All right, we're going to move on to the PowerPoint and start with an enrollment update. Okay, so what you're going to see are a series of slides that were put together by our retention manager, Morgan Junker. And what these are designed to do is to show you, what our enrollments have looked like in recent years, but also to provide you with projected outcomes or outlooks in terms of what our enrollment is likely to look like moving forward. So as you can see by the bar graph here, our continuing enrollment overall, the orange, has been declining for the last 4 years. Our FIDIAC population has leveled off a bit as of late, so that remains relatively strong. Transfer population has fallen significantly. That's not just a CASL issue, that's across the board. And our grad enrollment, although it's barely noticeable here on this chart, has actually increased this year. So that's a good thing. All right, next slide. So this is by credit hour. And while CASL still continues to be the largest academic unit in terms of credit hours generated, as you can see, the numbers of credit hours that we are responsible for has fallen consistently over the course of the last 5 years. We're down to 22,590 credit hours for all continuing students. And as you can see, it's broken down again by FIDIAC, which is first time in any college, for those of you unfamiliar with that term, transfer students, and graduate. So graduate enrollment's up a little bit, but it's such an insignificant part of what we do in the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters, although that's not to say it has to stay that way. There certainly may be some potential there for program development and growth in the future. Next slide, please. All right, CASL headcount projections. So this is moving forward based on what we have seen and also considering some of the demographic data that I will be sharing with you momentarily. And as you can see, the projected enrollment trends do not look particularly rosy for the college as we are currently operating. We project that the enrollments will continue to decline, that our FIDIAC population, FIDIAC numbers will continue to fall, that the transfer population will continue to crash, and that grad enrollments will remain relatively stable with perhaps a slight upward trend. And again, these are based off of current enrollment trends at the college level. Next slide, please. All right, this is credit hour enrollment projections for the same 5-year period, again, based off of our previous 5-year trends. Now, obviously, there are many factors that play into this. Things could look slightly different, but given what we've been seeing, this is what we are expecting our enrollments will look like moving forward. And again, credit hours will continue to fall. Our credit hours by those various demographics categories there will also continue to decline, with the exception perhaps of grad, where we expect to see some continued growth in that realm. Next slide, please. This is a very sobering slide because what it shows us is a demographic curve for the Michigan high school graduates going forward here in the state of Michigan. So as you can see, the numbers of potential traditional FIDIAC students here in Michigan are projected to decline rather steeply over the next few years. And the numbers at the bottom of that chart there tell us what our estimated yield from that in-state FIDIAC enrollment will look like. This is a population that, of course, is fought over by a number of universities and colleges, not just here in the state of Michigan, but elsewhere. This is a trend that is pervasive here in the Midwest, along with the Northeast. There are other parts of the country where the trend looks slightly different, particularly out west and down south. But as of right now, of course, we have none to virtually no footprint in any of those areas. So this is where we draw our students from, and the numbers of students that are out there, at least traditional students, is going to continue to decline. So we'll need to think a little bit more broadly about prospective student populations, but we also need to consider what the reality of the situation is. Next slide, please. And this is again, projection based on what we've been seeing relative to our transfer class. And this one is pretty self-explanatory. The line's pretty straight. It looks like our transfer population will continue to fall and to fall rather markedly. This is a function of a couple of things. First and foremost, what we are seeing across the state of Michigan is a huge drop in the student population at community colleges, which are among our primary feeders for transfer students. Henry Ford College, for instance, just 5 to 7 years ago had over 20,000 students, and their student population now is about to dip below 10,000. So that's just to give you some sense of the significant decline that community colleges are seeing. Henry Ford, of course, is important because it's our primary feeder for transfer students. Next slide, please. So this gives you a little bit of information relative to our retention and graduation rates. We have made some significant increases here. So our 6-year graduation rate for traditional students coming in right out of high school is at 52%. Our 4-year graduation rate is at 29%. It's gone up over the last few years. Our retention rate from first year to second year is quite high, and then it drops off for the second year. Some of that is a function of students transferring out of the university to other schools. Some of it's a function of things that perhaps we're not doing enough of on our end to keep students either engaged or moving forward in a timely manner. And then as you can see for our transfer population, while our retention rates are good initially, they drop off significantly thereafter. Likewise, we are not necessarily moving our transfer students through to graduation in as timely a manner as we would like. So only 11% of those students are graduating in 2 years' time. Now, not every transfer student who comes in necessarily has completed 2 years worth of work, but a significant number have. So 11% graduation rate is not great. By the end of 4 years, we're up to 46%, but there's still some work to be done here. This, of course, will be a focus of the work that Morgan Junker does as the retention manager. And she's doing a lot of outreach to academic units and faculty to get them involved as well in helping to move the needle on these important measures of success and student success. Next slide, please. Okay, so these next two slides look at the financial ramifications of the enrollment projection slides that we just looked at. And as you can see, of these two lines, the more important is the blue line, because that is where the vast majority of our students are, and thus the vast majority of our credit hour generation is. Blue line is undergraduate enrollment, and the orangey red line is graduate enrollment. And as you can see, while graduate enrollment is projected to rise a little bit, undergraduate enrollment is projected, as we saw, to fall fairly significantly, and that will result in a significant challenge to our budget. So what we're looking at here is a comparison of prior year to the indicated year in terms of the decline relative to the revenue generated as a result of these student populations. So over the course of the next few years, we're looking at a significant decline in credit hours and thus the revenues that the college will realize as a result of our enrollments. And this is enhanced by our recent move to the block tuition model, right? Because students, once they enroll for 12 credit hours or more, they pay the same amount. There's not additional tuition revenue realized by them taking subsequent credit hours beyond 12. Next slide, please. So this particular slide looks at impact of no change on credit hours by classification. So here we're sort of assuming that even if we were to retain our credit hour generation working at the rate that we're currently working at, we would still see declines in most categories. And why is this important? Because what it's telling us is that even if we were to sort of tread water and hold course and continue to do what we've been doing and sort of hold the student populations where they are at, it's still a money-losing proposition for the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters. It still puts us in an untenable financial position. Last of the financial slides, please. Okay, so this slide is the cost of avoiding any sort of change. And what it effectively shows us is that If we continue to move in the direction we're currently moving in without making any significant change, just looking at what we've projected, the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters is from fiscal year 20 to, or academic year 20 to academic year 24, which was represented in the previous slide, is going to realize a loss of nearly $2 million just in revenue from continuing students. FIDIACs, as you can see, nearly $1 million of that transfers a significant portion, 832,000. Slight increase in grad, a total loss of $3,691,000. And percentage change over to the right. Why the loss? Well, even if we were to stay where we're at in terms of generating credit hours, our expenses continue to increase, right? So we have promotions. So we know who's scheduled to be promoted over the next few years. Hopefully, we'll return to a time where there are merit packages for faculty and staff. And those have to be factored in. There's also the increased benefit costs that go up on an annual basis. And here we're working on the assumption that merit will probably average around 3% a year. That's about where we were. The net effect of all of this, though, is that the college is looking by the end of academic year 24 at a nearly, well, just under $4 million loss if we just held course and continued to do what we're currently doing and generating roughly the same amount of credit hours that we are generating. Right. So this is, these are the numbers that we're working from. This is the projections that we're looking at. These are the things that keep me up at night. Okay, let's see. I think we will come back to some of these figures when I talk a bit about some of the subsequent topics. But right now I want to leave these numbers up for them to sink in and you to think about, and give a very quick update on our strategic planning work. And then we've got one quick piece of business with the honors designation policy. And then I've got some comments in response to some of the things that I've been hearing about the state of the college address. And then we'll open things up for general Q&A after that. Okay. The strategic plan. As you know, strategic plan has been in effect for a number of years now. What we did over the course of the last summer was to close out our implementation plan for the academic year 2019-2020. So and we also revised the strategic plan, adding another strategic initiative around enrollment growth, not for the sake of growth itself, but for the sake of access and accessibility to a college education. So we would encourage you to visit the strategic planning link on the CASL webpage. You can see the updated strategic plan there. You can also view the implementation plan and the accomplishments that we had over the 2019-2020 academic year. And you can see the implementation plan for strategic planning for the 2021 academic year. So that has all been updated. We've set new we've identified initiatives we want to work on in light of where we're at in terms of the pandemic. We've also identified SMART goals that we will be working on to measure our success. We've established folks to, teams to work on those initiatives, and that work is underway. A fair number of folks who are on this, in this meeting, faculty, and some of the staff here in the Dean's office are all involved in that. So that's something to be well aware of. A lot of what we will be talking about relative to the state of the college, a lot of the things we highlighted there, along with some of the retention work that we're doing, are all tied to many of the strategic priorities that we laid out in that document. So just wanted you to be aware that that work continues. It continues to guide our planning. It continues to guide when we are told that the money that is being held in reserve is freed up. It will guide how that money is used and how those resources are allocated. So that is something I think to feel very good about. The college, I think, has done a wonderful job on the strategic planning front and is making very good progress. Okay, next slide, and I'm going to ask Gabriella to join us here and talk a little bit about the new honors designation policy for programs in the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Marty. And thanks, everybody, for joining us at this meeting. I see there are 80 of us, which is wonderful to see. I just wanted to give you a quick update on one of the policies that CASL exec has approved. You might know that CASL exec periodically reviews policies that the college has had for several years and that are up for renewal. This is one of them. I want to thank the members of the curriculum committee that have helped with revising this policy. So the honors designation policy is a policy that allows disciplines to create a special set of requirements that entitle their majors to get a honors designation that would then go into their transcript. Currently, biochemistry, economics, and psychologists all have an honors designation, but of course, all disciplines can do that. The policy simply states that to participate, students must apply, of course, and have a minimal 3.3 GPA overall and a 3.3 GPA in their upper level courses. Then disciplines can add different standards, different specific standards. For example, they can add a higher GPA. They can choose a couple of courses that would be part of the honors designation, or, for example, a research project. It is up to the discipline. Each discipline can set those standards. We're currently working on a form that discipline can, a template that discipline can use. We're also seeing if we can set up an electronic process, maybe through form stacks. We're looking into that, but we'll definitely give you an update. So for right now, though, if you are interested, please let me know. Please use the form that will become available. Look at the standards that econ, biochem, and psychology already have posted on their sites if you want to have a better idea. And then we can start the process. And let me know, please, if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriella. And thanks for putting work in on this designation. I think it will be very helpful. And again, it's one of those things that can help us with student success and recognition as well of the work that our students are doing. So with that, I wanted to spend a little bit of time both sharing some of the things that I've been hearing relative to the state of the college talk that I gave and the proposal that I put out there for a applied lab school model for the College of Art, Sciences, and Letters moving forward in terms of a new identity. And again, maybe clarify the need for change here in the College of Art, Sciences, and Letters. So a number of CASL faculty and staff have been asking questions about the call to action that I shared at the State of the College. Among the questions they asked, why the need for dramatic change in the college? Should we really be looking to reinvent ourselves and to restructure something that isn't broken? Wouldn't everything be okay if we just had more resources? Is this the right time to be looking to engage in such important work? Shouldn't we be waiting to see what the campus strategic plan looks like before the college does its own thing? So let me address these points and share with you the thinking of college leadership on some of these questions. First, I would say, in my view, and I think in the view of the rest of college leadership, there's no better moment than now. In fact, it is imperative that we act boldly. First of all, there is quite a bit of enthusiasm around the new vision. I've heard from a great many faculty and staff about their excitement and about ideas that they have. LCC and LPA, for instance, are already working on an urban arts initiative that's very much sort of applied in nature. History, my own discipline, has been engaging in conversations about possible paths forward. I know there are some faculty in the natural sciences who have also engaged in some robust discussion around this model. And of course, we already have a good deal of this work going on within the college. We've got the college-wide programs, which frankly, were very much in mind as I sort of articulated this vision of a lab school or an applied model. Mirrors a lot of the work that's already going on in the college-wide programs. We've got the Inside Out program. We've got the work that people like Paul Drouse and Carmel Price and Josh Akers are involved in, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot going on. The university is also currently engaged in a zero-based budget exercise. And what this means is that the university is setting every budget and every unit back to zero and asking every unit to make the case for a budget going forward. After our last round of cuts, we are at a place 98% of our base budget is tied up in faculty and staff salaries and benefits, 98%. We also, of course, need to build in the cost of supplies and phones and photocopiers, PDF, student labor, etc. That will already push us past our current base budget. To go further, to get additional resources, we need to make a statement. A compelling case for adequately funding CASL benefits our students, benefits faculty research in the communities that we serve because we are innovative. We cannot argue for more to do the same thing that we have been doing. This is not a compelling argument. As you could see, our enrollments are tanking with very few exceptions. Students are not flocking to the college. They're not interested in what we are offering, at least in its current form. Resources are more likely to follow new initiatives that promote student success and that have the potential for drawing new students to the university. More of the same doesn't do this. As the slides that we shared make clear, the demographics are also against us, particularly in light of where we draw our students from. The potential pool of new students is falling and will continue to do so. Competition is intense for these students, and our share of them will continue to shrink if we don't do something different. If we just follow the herd, there's really no reason for a student to choose us over anyone else. For the last 9 years, we've been operating under a responsibility-centered budget model that allocates resources based on performance measured in student headcount and credit hours generated. Now that model, of course, we know was flawed, but we will be seeing some variant of an RCM model once the new campus budget is established. In such a model, the colleges are tasked with generating their own revenue. We are, frankly, not pulling our weight, nor will we if we don't do something different. Current pandemic has revealed also some structural deficiencies in the way that we've organized our staff and the roles that many of them have been assigned. Last summer's voluntary furloughs demonstrated that the college could function with a smaller number of staff members covering a broadened range of work. The pandemic isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and even when it does, we will never return to the way that we used to do things. The campus will be looking closely at its staffing needs. New roles will be identified, old roles will change, and those who cannot or will not change will be left behind. So thinking hard about our identity and about the staffing and skill set needed to support that work will enable us to put our staff in a position to evolve and to demonstrate their utility and importance. By enhancing their roles and the skills that they possess, we will put them in a strong position to succeed and advance going forward. Both Chancellor Grasso and Provost Alcock are also very open to new approaches and are looking for ideas that can help to bolster student success and that can set us apart from our competition. Chancellor has expressed his interest in a problem-based curriculum. He's used Urban Futures, for instance, as an organizing principle for that. And he's also talked about professionally oriented PhD programs across the university, not academically focused PhD programs. The provost, who attended the State of the College, is eager to explore an applied curricular model, not just here in CASL, but more broadly across the university. In short, I think new ways of thinking are very much welcome by our current campus leadership. And by embarking upon such a path, we very much could influence decisions about resource allocations moving forward. The college will, in 3 years' time, also see at least 10 faculty members retiring. CASL needs to think very carefully about how to leverage those retirements in a strategic way, and thinking about using those in ways that promote student success. Presenting campus leaders with a series of requests for retentions of lines, sort of these reflexive, we need to refill what we just lost, and we're trying to continue on in a vain hope that we can continue with business as usual, isn't going to work. We're not going to be able to fill those lines following that line of thinking. Pursuing this path will only ensure that lines that are approved follow students, and it will be the STEM fields that will be rewarded and the non-STEM fields that will continue to atrophy in the college unless we don't think about a new approach. The university is also engaging in the process of identifying its fundraising priorities for the next capital campaign, which will launch next year. Those priorities will be solidified early next year, and a new initiative from CASL could very well make the list of campus priorities. In fact, the vice provost for institutional advancement was really interested in the ideas that we've been kicking around here in the college. Recent actions by other universities and colleges also suggest a growing trend in thinking that university students do not necessarily need to have a full range of standalone humanities and liberal arts majors available to them. In fact, many schools have seemingly made the decision that it might just be enough to expose students to these areas via general education and service courses rather than offering a full major. It's also important to point out that there will, frankly, never be a perfect time to discuss such a far-ranging reimagination of the college. As CASL enrollments continue to decline, so too will the overall number of faculty teaching in the college. We will, in short, continue to face a future of having to do more with fewer of us if we don't change things up and find a different path. Money at the University of Michigan-Dearborn will always be scarce. This university will never be rich, and it will always, given our student population and the need to support them, operate on a shoestring. Continuing to hope for more resources to do what we're already doing is not a path forward. Figuring out a way to generate more revenue and or to elicit some excitement could lead to more resources. Now, do we know that this is what our students will want? No, we don't. But we also know that what we are currently doing also does not seem to be what they want. They're voting with their feet. We understand that the current circumstances are trying and that many are facing intense pressure. Treading water and waiting, however, is not an option. We cannot gauge or predict when this pandemic will end or when we might be face to face again. Nor can we say that we'll have any more time on hand or at hand to engage in a robust discussion of our future course once that happens. And we have to acknowledge there's no guarantee that there won't be yet another disruption that saps our time and energy. We're working on freeing up more of your time as it relates to service. We've got some conversations going on in CASL Exec and Ad Council about what we can remove from people's plate during the pandemic. So look for more information on that. We really are cognizant of your struggles and are looking to help. I would also say that a number of individuals have suggested that the conversation around a new identity waits for a return to campus. Again, there's no predicting how long this might take. In addition, once we are back on campus, we will all have a lot of transition issues to deal with, and that's going to consume a great deal of time and energy as well. I don't believe a return to campus is going to free up time. For those who want to believe that things are not as challenging as we've suggested, we would only ask you to read the Chronicle of Higher Education or Inside Higher Education, to speak to your peers at other schools, to look closely at both our current financial and enrollment data and the projections that we shared, to think about your LEO and staff colleagues who recently lost their positions or had their effort reduced, to look at the decreasing number of faculty positions in the college over the last 5 years, to think about the future projections we shared, and to consider what you have personally experienced in your time here at the university. Each year our costs escalate, utilities, salaries, benefits, but our enrollments will, if we do nothing new, continue to erode, and thus our ability to cover these costs will be diminished. Given the amount of our base budget tied to salary and benefits, if we don't do something and do it quickly, we will have no other choice but to start looking at personnel reductions. Finally, I would point to the college's ongoing strategic planning work, which we just talked a little bit about, and to the fact that our business, the business of educating students, is predicated on a constant reexamination and reassessment of what we do. It is always the time to evaluate and reevaluate what we are engaged in. Many of you did precisely that as you prepared for a remote fall in light of the lessons learned last winter. We all do this on an annual basis when we look at our courses and assess their effectiveness. You do it as you engage in your research, right? You assess evidence or you look at the results of experiments. There's never a time when we do not engage in the work of evaluation and change. It's just inherent in the work that we do at a university. CASL could leverage its strategic plan, both in terms of protecting its allocated carry forward balances, but also in terms of setting its own course to promote a new vision. And in so doing, we could say to the rest of the university that we are masters of our own destiny, that we intend to set our own course, one that speaks to our values and to the needs and interests of our faculty, students, and staff. We have a choice here, I think. We can be proactive or we can be reactive. We can sit and wait to see where the campus is heading and react to this, or we can try to shape that future in a way that speaks to our priorities and our interests. I want to share with you a timeline that I have in mind for further conversations around what I have proposed to you. We have, of course, today as an opportunity for you to share thoughts and to ask questions. We also have some upcoming listening sessions, a couple scheduled this month and at least one scheduled in November. There's also a form stack that's available for you to submit ideas, and a number of people have chosen to do that, some of whom will be attending the listening sessions and would like to talk a little bit more about those ideas, and others who can't attend for whatever reason, but had ideas that they wanted to share. I've also met individually with a couple of faculty, including one today, who had some ideas that they wanted to share about this model going forward. So we've got these listening sessions, we've got an opportunity for feedback. The plan will then be after the last listening session in November for me to spend the Thanksgiving break trying to articulate what I've heard and capture what I've heard or what I've read into some sort of a more clarified vision statement or document around this idea of a lab school or an applied school approach. And then to share that document with the CASL community when we return or from the Thanksgiving break to our virtual campus. And then to engage in some further conversation at that point, and maybe to create some faculty and staff working groups to carry particular pieces forward or to think about how we might pilot some of this work. So that's what I have in mind relative to a, excuse me, to a timeline. So I thought I'd put that out there and share that with you. So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share these thoughts with you. And I want to now open the floor up to some questions and answers. So let's see. All right, so we have a question. Yes, I would invite the rest of my team to join here. And Mike LaChance will be sort of moderating the questions. First one is from Francine Dolans. And Francine's question is, there a move to merge CASL and chess? That's a really good question, Francine. And what I can say is that that topic is certainly one that is has been and still is a topic of conversation across the campus. There are a lot of areas of overlap and collaboration that exist between the two colleges. I think too that this idea of an applied laboratory-based school, that's a model that fits both units particularly well. There certainly could be some cost savings realized by bringing the two units together. There's nothing at the moment. There are no formal conversations afoot around that particular topic, but there have been some informal conversations between the various deans of the colleges involved and the provost. I think both schools are open to exploring those possibilities. What that might look like, I couldn't say. There were a number of different models that were being floated relative to how something like this might happen. One model had chess and CASL simply merging, and effectively chess becoming part of the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters, right? Someone said that's one possible way to move forward. Other suggestions would have sort of a moving around of various disciplines between the two colleges to create two entities that were more equal in terms of their size and student profile. And that might have some coherence around a particular organizing principle or idea. And there were a number of different thoughts about what that might look like. Then there are other folks who have suggested that perhaps just the health and human services piece of chess might fit more neatly into CASL, and that education continues to stand alone as maybe returning to a school. All of these have just been sort of informal, sort of brainstorming idea sessions that have occurred over time. This conversation has gone on for a number of years. I would imagine that the conversations will continue, but there's nothing at the moment that is pressing relative to that issue. So if you have, and we all have colleagues over in the College of Education, Health and Human Services, please let them know as well that there's nothing afoot. There are no backdoor plots underway to end their existence as a standalone college. I just think at this moment in time, everything is on the table, and that's a long-standing issue that everyone has been aware of, and so those conversations continue. All right, Eric has a question. Why not double down on online audience of national and international students? That's another good question. It is a certainty that our online presence will continue to be robust, even when we return to a semblance of face-to-face instruction. It is, I think, Eric, in light of people's more intense experience with remote learning, it very well could be the case that faculty on this campus would be more open to ideas around a more robust online platform. You're absolutely right. That would be a wonderful way to attract students from outside of our traditional catch basin and even from outside of the country. Although right now, with the current administration, international students cannot take, at least at the graduate level, I think at undergrad as well, they cannot take fully online programs. At least they can't get, well, they can't get visas. So we have to cobble out some online or some face-to-face presence for them in the current circumstances. So the college is working on this front. We've got a the Get to Almost 100 initiative, for instance, is looking to create more online majors and options for those majors for our students. There, Cam and some faculty are also looking at a pathway through the DDC that would enable students to earn an entirely online degree here at the university. Because right now they can just finish up their major. They might be able to do the DDC, but it's sort of hit or miss, and there's definitely no planning in place to ensure that courses that they might need are offered in a regular fashion. So those conversations are underway. Likewise, this morning at the Council of Deans meeting, the Dean of the College of Education, Health and Human Services asked about the possibility of an online pathway for students in education to complete some of their necessary coursework here in the college so that they could do their work entirely online as well. So I redirected her back to Cam so that that conversation could take place. This could definitely be something that we could leverage in terms of marketing and the like. It might be one of the arrows in our quiver that we use. I guess one thing that I would say is while it certainly could help, it wouldn't necessarily set us apart from, it would set us apart from our other state peers who don't necessarily offer a lot of online degree programs, although some do. But there are other schools, of course, that do offer online curriculums, including Arizona State, which has a very robust offering of online work. So it could be part of what we do. It could be part of the story. But what I am really trying to do is think about ways that we can set ourselves apart even more distinctly from our peers here in the state of Michigan, and that might speak to at least some more of our traditional student catchment basin. And the idea of this laboratory or applied college seems to do that. Not to say that that applied work couldn't be done in an online environment, right? That would be another important piece to think about, how we use remote learning to further that model. So you know, I think this is definitely going to be a bigger part of what the university as a whole does. And certainly CASL has been investing resources in enhancing what we do on this front as well. Other questions at this point? No? So I'll give folks a couple of minutes who may be thinking about a question, or they might have something that they want to share for that matter. It doesn't have to be a question. If you've got a comment that you'd like to get out there, we're happy to share that as well. So while I'm giving it another minute here or two, let me remind you that we do have a couple of upcoming listening sessions, which I have to look at my calendar, I think are next week. Yes, on Monday, right? So on the 19th, we've got one at 10 a.m. and another from 3 to 4. And then we have an additional listening session, which we'll be enrolling for in November. And then there's the form November 11th. And then there's the form stack form for those who would like to submit ideas via that venue. Or again, you can always write directly to me. If you have ideas, I'd be happy to correspond with you, or I would be happy to schedule a meeting and hear what you have to say as well. Other thoughts, things you might be thinking after the state of the college remarks. So is there a deadline for a new concept for CASL, for making the case to the chancellor for resource allocation? There's not, we don't have a hard and fast deadline. What I can tell you is, because I don't know exactly what the timeline is for creating a new budget for the university. Couple things are in play. The zero-based budget exercise is underway. Right, so Lee McGrath who used to work in the College of Engineering, who's now sort of the budget guru for the campus, has been working with a consultant that the chancellor engaged with, someone he worked with at Delaware, to start this process. They've already engaged in some initial steps. Conversations are scheduled to start soon with the budget team and the individual units on campus, including the academic units, to talk about building that budget. That budget team, Lee and the consultant, will then craft a budget, an overall budget for the campus as a whole, which will be shared with the chancellor and whatever group he's going to be using to make decisions about budget allocations, and then the conversation will shift to what the new RCM budget model will look like. So at the moment, I will at least be able to present to Lee an argument for holding on to resources or the potential for needing additional resources to support the initiative that we are currently considering. Again, what that exact timeline looks like, I don't know. I also am anticipating that we will see a version, if not the final version, of the campus's new strategic plan in the relative near future, perhaps even as early as the end of the month. One of the things that was very helpful in the senior officers and deans retreat that we had last week was my ability to talk about some of what we have been discussing here in the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters. I can tell you that many people across campus found that conversation to be really engaged. They were inspired by it. They found it to be really exciting. And I'm hoping that maybe it manifests itself in some way in the strategic plan. But even if it does not, what will be important is for CASL to think about how we can align with that strategic plan. First and foremost in that plan is going to be student success. And I think a lot of what we are proposing here very much connects to student success and promoting it. So that will be a good thing. Mike, yeah.
Just a couple of questions, Marty, that they're starting to roll in. So maybe if I could throw some at you.
Please.
One is there effective market research about what students want that the lab concept actually addresses?
So that's a good question. We have not engaged in that market research. What I can point to are, and again, it's sort of anecdotal, but conversations that I've had with students about the kinds of things that they valued during their educations here at UM-Dearborn. What do they point to? The mentored research with with faculty, the Inside Out program and how it transformed their outlook, the kinds of project-based work they're doing with people like Josh and Carmel and the like, their internship experience. So a lot of what they value, a lot of what they talk about, a lot of the things that they felt were particularly transformative or that they speak of when I talk to them as they're presenting their research in the undergraduate research forum or meeting of minds, are these kinds of engaged activities, this kind of applied model. And many of them have found it really interesting and exciting to be involved in projects that were designed around a particular question, to address a particular question. So it's definitely a conversation. We need to have more conversations with students, but this is the kind of thing that students have reported. And frankly, when you look at some of the areas in the college that have had stronger enrollments and the faculty who draw and attract students, it's the folks who do this kind of work. Mike? Yeah.
There's a question was raised that the questioner suggests that the merger with Chess would save $500,000 a year. And if we're not doing that, that sort of undermines the seriousness of what we are trying to convey to people about our financial situation. So there's sort of mixed messaging there.
I don't disagree. That's not a decision I get to make. I've advocated for a merger of the two schools. I think it makes perfect sense. The bulk of there's a lot of overlay and interconnectedness between the two colleges. At the work that, think of Lisa Martin, whose appointment is in both schools. A lot of the work that's being done in health and human services very much is interdependent on courses taught in the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters, both the natural sciences and the behavioral sciences and the like. Bringing those groups of faculty, those students together under one academic unit, to me makes perfect sense. Likewise, education students, especially at the secondary level, they're CASL students. They get majors in CASL, and then they go on to get their certification in the School of Ed. So I don't disagree, but I don't have a that much say in how the university as a whole administers its budget or its messaging around that point. But I think that is an accurate assessment, that there's significant potential savings there that could be realized. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
In terms of can growth in graduate programs, do you think, can that overcome our undergraduate difficulties?
So that's an interesting question. Graduate growth certainly was a huge boon to both the College of Business and to the College of Education and Computer Science. It has been one of the primary reasons for their financial health. I think there is definitely some room there. The issues there, though, are somewhat similar to the questions that are being asked about this new identity. Creating new graduate programs is going to require a lot of faculty time and effort. Those programs will need to be in areas where we have some faculty strength to begin with, and or where we can realistically make faculty hires. I think too that, sorry, I just lost, I had another thought that just escaped my mind here. What I would say is that enrollment growth, it definitely has some potential. I think it can help to offset some of those losses because, of course, graduate tuition is also higher, and that could be a good thing. Where we would, of course, have to be cautious is simply following the model that we've sort of followed on the undergraduate front of creating programs that other people also have. So just creating graduate programs that compete with a similar graduate program at Eastern or Oakland or what have you isn't necessarily going to solve that problem. Mike?
In the financial projections that you shared, did that take into account state support?
The assumption there is that state support is going to remain relatively flat. Is that correct, Rita? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, my unmute was hiding. Yeah, it's projected to stay flat, if not decline. So that a decline would actually make things worse for us.
So I think on that front, Mike, it's important to note the state's not going to bail out higher education. It's not going to happen. Ann Arbor is not going to pump millions of dollars into Dearborn on a regular basis. They certainly did so, and you know, we can attribute the that inflection of money to people want to point to one U, they certainly can. If people want to talk about the work of the regions collectively, they can. For whatever reason, Ann Arbor did pour a significant amount of money into the Dearborn and Flint campuses. We're going to have to show some results for that money if we hope to have it continue to come our way. And then B, there are potential downsides to having Ann Arbor sending more money our way, in that they're likely going to want to have more of a say in terms of how it gets spent, and or in terms of determining what a proper outcome might look like. And so while certainly more money from Ann Arbor can be a good thing, it can also come with a lot of strings that might not necessarily always be welcomed on our campus.
Marty, with respect to one of your earlier slides on retention, we're still losing a lot of students. Do you have any sense of how this laboratory model would address or combat this loss of students?
Yeah, I mean, I won't pretend that I have definitive data that will speak to that. One of the reasons we do lose students, though, is a lack of a sense of connection or a real tie to the campus. One of my hopes would be that by creating this kind of more of an engaged or applied model, that those students would have opportunities to be doing more hands-on active work, working closely with faculty and with their student peers in ways that would bind them more to our campus. So again, I don't have any definitive data on that, but my sense is that that could very well help to make those students feel more connected to our campus.
Marty, if academic units begin to work through this process and try to work in this direction, what kind of support can the college offer? Can they designate an internal consultant? What kind of support can the college look for?
So a fair question. And of course, at the moment, the college has probably this pile of change on my desk to work with. So it's not a lot because our money is currently sort of in abeyance. It's been, we're holding it in reserve at the behest of the chancellor. We're waiting to find out when those funds will be released. But as soon as they are, many of our strategic planning initiatives very much, I think, speak to some of the pieces of this model. So we will have some resources that we may be able to use to help to grease the skids for some piloting of certain things. The other thing that we sort of have at the moment is a bit of a, in some areas, a glut of faculty and not enough students to teach. So it's certainly possible that we might be able to think about some sort of reallocation of teaching or effort for those who may be interested in heading up some further research or in doing some sort of further investigation of what this might look like or helping to flesh out a plan. I am perfectly comfortable going to the chancellor and provost also to ask for additional funding if this is a direction we want to move in, or to ask them for access to other folks on campus who might help us to think this through more in more detail. Because I'm certain there are people on campus who can help us to, with data or surveys, or who may have some experience in other models that are structured similar to this.
We have a question that relates to course caps, and if we go this laboratory approach, how do you do more high impact teaching with course cap structures such as they are?
Mm-hmm. Fair question. And as soon as what I think we told members of CASL exec this week, that as soon as the pandemic is over and things return to a semblance of normality, I think it is very much an imperative that the college engage in a broad-based conversation around course caps. Our course caps are all over the place. They're not always consistent. If this is indeed a model that we would like to pursue, and we feel that smaller classes are important in terms of ensuring its success, then it becomes incumbent upon campus or college leadership to make that case to the campus, both in terms of smaller course caps, but also in terms of additional faculty hires to ensure that those courses remain capped at smaller numbers. So I agree. We can't do a good job of working with students in an applied way, or helping them to get their hands dirty, if you will, or putting them on projects if we've got 180 students or 40 students even in a class. It will involve smaller groups of people working together.
There was a comment that the demographic numbers are really scary. What's missing from the slide presentation is an analysis that says, just like, how many students do we need to serve? You know, what's the break-even point? What are reasonable, meaningful targets that we could all sort of internalize?
And I would say, yeah, that's it's not there. The campus as a whole is definitely engaging in some of that conversation. What I would tell folks is that we should, in the near future, see a strategic enrollment management plan come out of from the Vice Chancellor of Enrollment Management. And the SEM plan, as it's called, Strategic Enrollment Management Plan, will definitely guide the university in terms of its targets on enrollment and what it's trying to do. In large part, those targets are designed to ensure financial security for the campus and sort of a sustained pattern of projected growth. I think once the SEM plan is out, it would absolutely be a good opportunity for the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters to look at that material and to think about enrollments as they relate specifically to the college, both modeling what those would look like, because I'm sure the SEM plan is going to be broken down by expected enrollments by college as well as the university as a whole. And so we can certainly look at those when that plan is finalized and assess whether those targets are realistic or not. I'm certain they're going to continue to look a little frightening, but they also may be based on some other assumptions relative to growth, maybe in outstate regions or even out of state. Speaking maybe to Eric's point about a more robust online presence. But I don't know. I don't have the details of that plan yet. And so I think that will inform that conversation much more than anything that we currently have available to us. But, you know, break-even points is, it's important, but it also, it's something we need to caution ourselves about aiming for break-even points, because, and that's one of the issues that I think we've really had to grapple with relative to summer teaching, right? Because a lot of faculty fall into the trap that I get paid X number of dollars to teach this course. I have Y number of students who are paying this much in tuition. This is my pay, and they're still, you know, I don't know, $1,000 left over or what have you. That doesn't encompass the full range of things that the college has to pay for with those revenues. And so the break-even analysis would have to be pretty sophisticated because it has to take into account all of those additional expenses that are part of our ongoing operations. So we have some of that, but projecting what those will look like going forward is always a bit speculative. But that's a good question, and I think once the SEM plan's out, we'll have a better sense of at least what the university is thinking relative to the college.
It seems like to some that the idea of a laboratory school is just that, it's an idea, and it doesn't seem to be based on solid research. So I guess it maybe gets to questions, are there models we know about, that sort of thing?
So there are, I shared a couple of things with folks when I responded to some of the questions. I know there's another.
Albion was a place.
Albion was one. I also shared a link to the University of Michigan's history program in Ann Arbor, which has a number of sort of humanities problem-based groups that are working collectively.
Was Arizona State in there too, in terms of?
It was, although that's a very large school, and it does encompass more than that. There are, I know that Jonathan shared of an example recently. I don't remember if it was sort of Rensselaer, Polytech, or Rochester Institute of Technology. Those are schools that are project-based, although they tend to be more STEM and engineering-based. Yeah, well, again, there's more work to be done. There are, I'm sure there are other models out there. I know that the conversation I had with a faculty member this morning talked about a couple of programs that used to exist in Ann Arbor and at Michigan State in prior decades that were very much oriented toward this kind of work. One of them had students from the community engaging in problem-based work in the community. And over the course of the year of work that they did, they earned the equivalent of a year's college credit. So when they enrolled at the university, they came in as sophomores, right? So that's a model where the students are sort of engaged with this applied nature and with some of their general education on the ground. It's also potentially a model that could give us a leg up over community colleges, right? Who are not doing that kind of thing. So yes, it is. I threw out an idea. Have I had time to fully research it? No. I do. There are other things that, frankly, sadly, eat up a lot of my time that don't enable me to do as much of this kind of thinking as I would like. Thus, the invitation for us to engage collectively in thinking about this and to ask folks that we all know about how some of this may play out in other places. Gabriella, you were going to say something?
I was going to share questions about it's actually a suggestions that comes from our colleague Terry Laws, and she's suggesting designating internal consultants to assist academic units work through various ideas for applied programs, which I think it's a great idea.
And there are actually a couple of faculty members at the campus level who are looking at things that we as a campus already do and how we might leverage those things to build upon so that we can broaden this approach across the university. So these people are working, it's Josh Akers and I think it's Natalie Sampson from Chess are looking at these things on behest of the provost's office. Again, it's indicative of her interest in this sort of an approach. So I think to Terry's question, I think there is some work going on. I think these faculty will be asked to submit some sort of an inventory and report of what's going on. And it very well may be the case that we can leverage their expertise for this purpose. I mean, there are people who do this on our campus, and we all know who they are. That's one of the things that we certainly can do is ask them how they go about doing this business. How do you start this? What are the things that students like about this kind of work? How do we get them engaged? How do you find community partners to work with and the like? Anything else? Yes, Kalamazoo College is another example. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. No? Yeah, Rita. You're on mute.
Darn it.
All right.
Somebody had to do it. Why not me? There was a suggestion posted. I don't know if you saw it when it came by. Let's see. Sorry, maybe I'm reading it incorrectly. It says, why are you putting the faculty whose classes aren't running at the steering wheel of this? And so I think maybe that's a misperception that there are some faculty that aren't in those classes. And it said, why not have those who have been successful at getting their courses to run to reassign? And I think your charge is more broad. You're not limiting this to anybody. So I thought
I'm absolutely not limiting to, no. This is an open call. We absolutely want people that have been engaged in this and have been successful in doing this to do this sort of thing. There may be folks who've been successful in doing it whose disciplines are sort of struggling for students. So it's not necessarily a case that those who don't have students to teach don't know how to do this. In fact, it may very well be the case that they just, they happen to be in a faculty saturated discipline where students currently are not necessarily taking courses. So I'm not trying to put the onus for the work on folks whose disciplines don't have robust student enrollments. They may not be interested in participating, and that's fine. This is all about finding willing and eager participants so that they can help us all to understand what potential exists here and what this model might look like. No? Okay. Well, with that, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. Again, thank you as well for your ongoing work and commitment on behalf of our students and on behalf of the college. And if you please do plan to join us for the listening sessions. The advantage there is that my mic will be turned off and yours will be turned on, so I get to hear from you, which is good. Also, if you have ideas, you're not able to attend those listening sessions, or maybe you just prefer a more individual style of dialogue, send those to me. I'd be happy to entertain them and to to interact with you. Likewise, if you'd like to meet to talk about them, we can do that. So I think that that is it. I hope that all of you stay safe and healthy. And if there are things that the college can assist you with, please don't hesitate to reach out and to let us know. All right. Thank you all. Talk to you soon. Bye.